right. Welcome back to the Patrick Regan Show.
You got it wrong.
Got Jay in there holding down the lunch coming up, listening to boy band song.
Right. I have daughters. I hear this stuff enough.
Oh, I used to torment the producer from with show. But they can't all be rock songs, I guess. This segment, I ran across this story today while I was doing some show prep, and it is from the Associated Press. Real quick, if you want a little behind-the-scenes thing about putting together your own radio show, you can, no matter what you do, no matter what stories you put together and what you decide you want to talk about, it all goes out the window about 3 hours before the show. So, and this is what happened here. I had a couple other things I wanted to talk about, but I read this piece on Google here, and I really wanted to go over this because it's really important. What is it? It says Associated Press story, and it starts off, a federal judge has ruled that Google must comply with the FBI's warrantless demands for customer data, rejecting the company's argument that the government's practice of issuing so-called national security letters to telecommunication companies, internet service providers, banks, and others was unconstitutional and unnecessary. FBI counterterrorism agents began issuing the secret letters, which don't require a judge's approval, after Congress passed the USA Patriot Act in the wake of the September 11th, 2001 attacks. The letters are used to collect unlimited kinds of sensitive private information, such as financial and phone records, and have prompted complaints of government privacy violations in the name of national security. Now, are you still glad your congressional representative voted for this piece of freedom-robbing legislation? Now, I've talked about the members of Congress who voted for it and renewed it, and voted for the NDAA, which expanded it. Now, if you want to hear that segment, again, I've mentioned this before, you can go to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Patrick Regan Show, and go back through the archives. In fact, I think NDAA is in the title of the segment. But during that, I listed the people in Congress who voted in favor of this type of just breach of our privacy rights. Now, if you're wondering what this warrantless search is, if you haven't been keeping up on it, this is when a government agent writes and signs their own search warrant. Only they're not called search warrants. They're called national security letters to make you think they're actually being used to protect you in some way. Now, a search warrant has to be reviewed and signed by a judge, so we have a check on the police deciding they want to violate your rights. They have to convince a judge that it's absolutely necessary. The national security letters, they don't require that, only that the federal agents say it's necessary. No judge needed. Does that sound like a good idea to you? No? Well, odds are you supported your congressional representative who voted for it, voted to allow agents to decide for themselves whether or not to violate your rights. But getting back to the story, it says, in a ruling written May 20th and obtained Friday, U.S. District Court Judge Susan Ilston ordered Google to comply with the FBI's demands. But she put her ruling on hold until the 9th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals could decide the matter. Until then, Google must comply with the letters unless it shows the FBI didn't follow proper procedures in making its demands for customer data in the 19 letters Google is challenging. Now, after receiving sworn statements from top-ranking FBI officials, the judge, Ilston, said she was satisfied that 17 of the 19 letters were issued properly. Oh, okay. The top-ranking FBI officials say it's okay, that everything was done properly. Because you can sure trust top-ranking officials at a government agency. Just ask the IRS, Lois Lerner, Eric Holder, heck, even President Obama. They'll all tell you those top-ranking officials aren't going to do anything wrong. They aren't going to violate anyone's rights without a really important reason. Kirk Opspa, yes, it's OPSAH, an attorney with the Electronic Freedom Foundation, said it could be many more months before the appeals court rules on the constitutionality of the letters, of the national security letters, in the Google case. Judge Ilston's May 20 order omits any mention of Google or that the proceedings have been closed to the public. But the judge said the petitioner, in quotes, was involved in a similar case filed on April 22nd in New York federal court. Doesn't that sound nice? Closing proceedings involving the violating of the rights of citizens of the United States of America. You know, I remember reading in the Constitution about it saying the government should conduct hearings in secret courts without any type of public review. That doesn't sound like anything that goes on in Mother Russia or China or any other oppressive state, like North Korea. In 2007, the Justice Department's Inspector General found widespread violations in the FBI's use of the national security letters, including demands without proper authorization and information obtained in non-emergency circumstances. Since then, the FBI has tightened oversight of the system. So we've had problems and abuse with this program, and yet we allow it to continue. I'm sure the people who are targets of this abuse don't think it's such a great thing to be doing. Just ask the Tea Party how much fun it is being targeted by a government agency. The reason given to us for this whole procedure is that government agents didn't have time to get a judge's approval. They had to move on this information now before another attack occurred. The holdup on preventing attacks was trying to run down a judge and getting them to sign a search warrant. But here is a case, or this case, which has been delayed for months now. And you expect me to believe you cannot get a judge to review a search warrant during that whole time? That's a bold-faced lie, an outright lie. They can get a judge to review a search warrant within hours, at most a day if that's what's required. The agents can even go to the judge's house and have him sign it on his kitchen table. But these national security letters were so important, they had to be acted on immediately. Yet here it is months later, and the letters are hung up in court. Seems to me if they actually had something concrete, they could have a judge sign a regular search warrant by now. This Associated Press story finishes up with the FBI had 16,511 national security letter requests for information regarding 7,200 people in 2011. That's what their latest data says. So 16,511 requests on around 7,200 people. How many of those people have been arrested? Well, none. That's how many. Because if anyone had been arrested as a result of these national security letters, you can bet we'd have seen no end to the agents being trotted out before the cameras extolling the virtues of this program. How having warrantless searches helped them crack the case. So you freedom and liberty people, you guys who preach about respecting the rights of people, you shut up, because this program nabbed this dangerous person before they had a chance to do something. Now, this program is all about government wanting to be able to tell itself it can violate your rights if it deems it necessary, which really means you don't have any rights other than what the government says you have. These are people who believe all your rights, your natural human rights, they all come from government. You don't have any rights. Contrary to what our Declaration of Independence states, you don't have any unalienable rights. Your rights are only what the government says they are at the time. Just look at how the government routinely violates them, and we vote people in to allow it. Allow government agencies or agents to write their own search warrants based on the fact they say it needs to be done. And you sit here and tell me we don't have a serious problem with the government in this country, that we don't have essentially a tyranny under which we live. Now, it's nice. The walls are lined with some nice wallpaper and the floor's carpeted, but it's still a cage when you get past all the pretty decorations. You need to check to see how your congressional representative voted on this type of legislation, the Patriot Act, the NDAA. When you hear this will help on the war on terror or This is another tool in the fight on the war on terror. Your ears need to start listening really hard, because this is something designed to remove from you more of your freedom. And the truth of the matter is, we don't need it. It's just another power grab by the government. Another way to get you used to thinking your rights are only what the government says they are and nothing more. We are the ones in charge. We need to start taking these rights back. Start removing from the government all these privileges it has granted itself in violation of the Constitution. If we don't, you will have to be blind to not see where we're heading. If the police can kick in your door, and that's essentially what national security letters mean. If they can kick in your door, just based on the assertion from another fellow officer that it needs kicking in, then we're on the verge of a complete totalitarian police state. And then it'll be too late to get turned around, because that same police state would never allow it. All right, we're up on the last break already, the Patrick Riggins Show. When we come back, we went a little over. It'll be a short segment, but we'll see what we get to here. Join us in a couple of minutes.